Hi, and welcome to the Commander Companion YouTube channel. My name is AJ, and today we're going to go over a deck tech for Yorvo, Lord of Garenbrig. This is a mono green, stompy, tokens, overrun kind of style deck, and it's just been a lot of fun to play. If you have more than 4 people in your pod and you're just playing a chaotic game, it doesn't really work too well, but if you're doing a normal 4-player or best case terms, you're playing duo commander one-on-one, Yorvo just kind of smashes. So Yorvo is a 0/0 giant noble for 3 green mana. Says when he enters, he gets 4/1/1 counters. Then, whenever a green creature enters the battlefield, he gets a 1/1 counter. Under your control, gets a 1/1 counter. Then, if its power is greater than Yorvo's, he gets another 1/1 counter. So we're going to capitalize on both the amount of green creatures entering the battlefield, token or non-token, and we're going to capitalize on counters to make sure the synergies are all there, which there's a surprisingly large amount of. So for lands, we run 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26 basic forests. And then Rogue's Passage and Mosswort Bridge. Mosswort Bridge is more in the card advantage section, but Yorvo is going to be pretty large most of the time, and if he's not, you have a bunch of other tokens that just make up for the power difference. So whatever you have underneath it is 1 mana, usually turn 4 or turn 5 in the game. Rogue's Passage to ensure that you can get commander damage out with Yorvo. Next up, we're going to do the ramp section. So I have a land in here for it because Myriad Landscape, it comes in tapped. We don't really like that in a monocolor deck. But it does grab you 2 basic lands that share a land type, and all the basic lands are forests. Soul Ring, because Soul Ring. Then we have some creatures that enter that cause us to grab lands, and that is always a better thing if possible. I excluded a couple in particular, just because they're less efficient, the 4 mana and up ones. We have Widow, Springbloom Druid, Yavimaya Dryad, and Farhaven Elf. These 3 essentially are the same thing in this deck. Springbloom Druid is going to sacrifice a land and grab you 2 basics, put them in tapped, so it's basically Harrow, but on a stick, and they come in tapped. Not as good, but it gets you your counter off of Yorvo. We have Incubation Druid because it can potentially ramp you for 3. Marwyn the Nurturer because we have, as you've seen already, a bunch of elves. And we make elf tokens in the deck. And so our removal, Reclamation Sage, is going to be on an elf. Why not capitalize on more synergy in the deck? Then we have the usual Cultivate and Kodama's Reach for consistency. And then we have Lotus Cobra to capitalize on all of the lands entering the battlefield and multiple different sections of that. Sakura Tribe Elder, a rampant growth on a creature that will get us a trigger off Yorvo. And something I'm more or less just testing is Harvest Season. We have enough tokens and everything to go wide with, and then go Harvest Season on main phase 2 to grab a bunch of lands from our deck, or potentially emptying them out. If we have a Lotus Cobra on the battlefield, we can just continue our turn if we have a way to draw too. And then our next category is going to be card advantage / card draw. So we have a couple tutors. We have Fauna Shaman. For 1, it's an elf. And for 2, Fauna Shaman is just absolutely fantastic to grab whatever piece we need in particular during the game. If we're needing a token producer, we got a token producer. We need a piece of removal, we got a piece of removal. Since the majority of our deck is creatures, this card is key. Then we have our burst card draw in Shamanic Revelations and Regal Force. Both are going to cause us to draw a bunch of cards based on the creatures we control, the amount of creatures we control. Then we have some cards based on the power and toughness of our creatures. Because Yorvo is going to be humongous, we have Return of the Wild Speaker. Also an overrun effect, which is nice because the majority of our creatures in the deck are non-human. And we can just draw cards based on Yorvo's power or anything else. Drawing 6 cards off of this is going to be amazing one way or the other. Instant speed is great too. Hunter's Prowess. I choose to play this over... There's another couple of cards that do the similar effect, but this gives Trample. So I would rather telegraph the combat and put Trample on it rather than surprise draw cards when we can commander damage out with Yorvo. Greater Good. I'm willing to sacrifice him for 15 cards potentially. And Garruk Primal Hunter, just Garruk Return of the Wild Speaker or Greater Good just on a Planeswalker, potentially tokens also to activate. We have much more in the card advantage category. We have Beast Whisperer, Primordial Sage, and Soul to Harvest, which all basically do the same thing. Whenever we play one of our creatures, we're going to draw a card, refilling our hand. We have Bonner's Enclave because Yorvo is always at least a 4/4, so it's 3 mana, tap, draw a card. We have Vizier of the Menagerie. I haven't been able to get out in any game I've played so far and keep it out, but the advantage there is pretty amazing. You're going to be able to flip off the top of your deck creatures when the majority of the deck is creatures. Tireless Tracker, we have a small land synergy in the deck, so it seems like it's a pretty good include. I haven't actually been able to play it in the deck so far, but it's just a good card in general. So next up, we're going to go through our removal package. It's not as extensive as a lot of decks, but we do have Reclamation Sage. It's creature-based removal. It's good. Terastodon, again, creature-based removal is fantastic in this deck. We get a Yorvo trigger. We get to blow up 3 non-creature permanents. Worst case scenario, we blow up 3 of our own and make 3 green elephant tokens to trigger Yorvo 3 more times. Null Mage Shepherd, tap 4 untapped creatures you control, destroy target artifact or enchantment. We have a bunch of creatures. We may be able to activate this 5 times in a turn and blow up the board. Monstrous Onslaught, just kind of a hidden gem that I love playing in anything that gets big. It deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control as you cast the spell. So Yorvo most of the time is going to hit up to 10, 15 power on and stay out on the board until someone can remove him, because they don't want to remove him when he's lower. There's no point to, and there's bigger threats. Monstrous Onslaught says, I'm going to wipe the board without wiping my own stuff. Primal Might is a 1 mana fight spell, or it's a pump X into it, fight something, remove the threat, and then kill someone with commander damage with Yorvo. Rabid Bite, removal spell again, for targeting your creature and target theirs, and just deal damage to it. Azorius Predation just got reprinted in the recent commander set, and it is fantastic in this deck. For each creature your opponent controls, create a 4/4 green beast token, and then each of those creatures fight a different one of those creatures. So if your opponents are just sitting there building up a board state with utility creatures, mana dorks, different things that are just important for their board but don't really swing it for combat, you're going to kill everything with Azorius Predation. And even if any of those beasts die, you still get all of those Yorvo triggers, which is fantastic. Next, we're going to come on to the token production, which is a large chunk of the deck. So we got Hornet Queen for the Death Touch and 4 tokens. Sandworm Convergence because flying is a issue, and this will just straight up make everything easier for you, and it makes a token. Kessid Cage Breakers. It's going to make a 2/2 wolf token whenever it attacks for each and attacking for each creature card in your graveyard. Asika's Chariot, just basically populate whenever it attacks. We have Night Soil because this is actually doubles as removal from graveyards and makes you a token. Curious Herd. People like to play the artifacts and fast mana. We can take advantage of that and just make a bunch of tokens. Bio Waste Blob, it's a little slower because it duplicates itself only every time one of your upkeeps happen. But if someone doesn't remove it within the first time it splits, it does tend to get quite out of control, and it just keeps triggering Yorvo more and more and more. Hydro Broodmaster, I just like to spawn a bunch of Hydras, and it's kind of fun. It's probably not the most efficient token creator, but it is a mana sink when we have a decent chunk of mana production in the deck. Deep Forest Hermit makes 4 squirrel tokens. It's a body itself, so great card. Geometric Nexus. It's a newer card from the newest commander sets. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, put a number of charge counters on it equal to that spell's mana value. And then you can pay 6 mana, tap, and remove all charge counters from it to put to create a fractal token and put X11 counters on it, where X is the number of charge counters removed this way. It's only gonna put 1 token out, but you're gonna make 1 ginormous creature, which is what this entire deck loves. Paradox Zone, another new card. It's more of a test card at the moment because it's going to get growth counters on it, which combined with another card in the deck is actually quite good. But it's going to make a token at the beginning of each of your end steps, so you get value at the turn that you cast this, and you're going to double the number of growth counters on it at the beginning of each end step also. So it has potential to be amazing. Verdant Force, beginning of each upkeep, make a 1/1 Sapperling. Iridescent Hornbeetle is a very interesting fun card. So at the beginning of your end step, you create a 1/1 green insect creature token for each 1/1 counter you put on creatures under your control this turn. So that, combined with Yorvo's ability to get 1/1 counters on it, just gets out of control fast. Now, of course, the tokens entering are not going to continue to count each other, but you're going to get a bunch of 1/1 tokens. It's going to trigger Yorvo a bunch. And then your next time around, or hell, if you have Verdant Forest plus Iridescent Hornbeetle, you're getting 2 tokens per turn and 2 counters on Yorvo per upkeep. It's going to make Yorvo big very, very fast. Ant Queen, because it's one of the most efficient token producers in all Magic. That alongside, Luminarch Ascension for 2 mana. Second Harvest, sometimes just burst, doubling your tokens and making Yorvo at instant speed during combat a 24/24 beater that just kills somebody out of nowhere is fun. Freyalise, she's more in there because she's very versatile. She's a token producer that produces mana dorks. She destroys artifacts and enchantments. She can just do that when she enters and then start getting her +2/+2. Whatever. And in best case, she gets up and she becomes a Regal Force and just draws you a card for each green creature you control. Scoot Swarm, because it's just absolutely fantastic, especially when we have a small land sub-theme. Avenger of Zendikar, again, land sub-theme, why not? The Wolverine Riders. Same thing as the Verdant Force, but it's going to gain you a slow incremental amount of life. Whenever an elf enters the battlefield, you gain life equal to its toughness. So it's going to be a good card, and it's 1 less mana. Then we have Arasta of the Endless Web. Still kind of a tester card in the deck, but I really enjoy the thought of having a reach creature in the deck that produces more reach creatures. And it's every time an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell. So even when they try to remove it, you're still going to get a 1/1 or a 1/2 unless they board wipe. So the second to last category we're going to go over is our counter synergies. Since we have so many tokens coming in and causing Yorvo to trigger, it's always good to have a small counter sub-theme because we're going to be able to take advantage of this a lot. The biggest one of it is the Ozolith. It doesn't matter how many times they kill Yorvo. If the Ozolith is out and you get Yorvo back out, combat happens, he gets all those counters again really easily. Karn's Bastion is you just proliferate all your counters on everything. There's just nothing like it. Ivalian Denizen. Whenever another green creature token or green creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Sounds great when it doesn't say non-token, so all your tokens are going to be producing even more counters for Yorvo. Wildwood Scourge just wants to get counters on itself, but you cast it for 2 mana and have Yorvo out, and you're going to continue to get counters on this thing, especially with Iridescent Hornbeetle out. You're getting an absurd amount of advantage off of that. Pure Imaginative Rascal, because the extra 1/1 counter is great. It also counts for any of your Planeswalkers, and the Geometric Nexus, the growth counters, everything. Forgotten Ancient, it's just kind of a silly card that you can pump Yorvo up with, and it kind of makes people think twice about casting a giant chunk of spells. We have one of the newer cards, Fractal Harness. So you don't have to cast it for the X amount. You could just cast it for X equals 0 and make that token, and it dies instantly. So you'll still get your counter with Yorvo, and then you can equip it to Yorvo and attack. As soon as it attacks, it doubles the amount of counters on Yorvo. So they go from having a 7/7 Yorvo to a 14/14 that's going to kill them very fast. Ornreef the Vastwood, with a small amount of counter synergy in the deck, actually a decently large chunk of counter synergies and token synergies that work together, there's no reason not to just pump your board full of counters and have a bunch of fun with it. Evolution Sage, proliferating all your counters. Hardened Scales, it's one of the best 1-mana 1/1 counter cards there is. I think that's honestly only the Ozolith and this. Colonian Hydra doubles all the counters on your creatures when it attacks. Fantastic for doubling Yorvo's counters again. And Invigorating Surge is another counter doubler, and it puts a 1/1 counter on it as well. So if you just cast this after casting Yorvo, it's going to go up to 10 counters. Our last category is our utility and protection package, which is very small. Normally I would run a little bit more protection, but it was getting a little tight on card slots for what I wanted, and taking out tokens our token producers made the deck run a little slower, and the counter synergies made it run a little slower. So it was either removal or protection. So I chose to remove protection so I can keep control of the board a bit more. So we have one of the best combo enablers in all of Magic, which is Temur Sabertooth. But I don't use it in this deck for any of that. But it is great to be able to return an Avenger of Zendikar and recast it. Kind of slow, but fun. Asceticism is amazing, being able to regenerate and giving hexproof. Garruk's Uprising, it's going to draw you a decent chunk of cards, but it's also a way to give trample. Runamite's the same way, and it's a cantrip. And Tuskguard Captain is functionally the same thing again. It gives all your creatures with 1/1 counters on them trample. So the way the deck plays is just to play Yorvo, play your token producers, and swing. It is a very streamlined game plan, and it is very fun to play. If there's upgrades that you'd want to make for it, you'd probably want to go for probably a faster mana production curve, the normal Mana Crypt and everything, but also Yorvo is 3 green mana, which means Mana Crypt isn't going to push him out faster, it's just going to push out the rest of your cards faster. So it does help you get prepped for him, but it doesn't necessarily help the game plan 100%. Otherwise, I honestly am not sure off the top of my head. If anyone has any suggestions for the deck or anything, you're more than welcome to comment in the comments below. If you have another deck list you want to share or any other ideas, or maybe something I misspoke or said wrong, make sure to like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content on the channel here, and I hope you all have a great day, great week, and I will talk to you again soon.